Good morning. My name is Sean Williams. I am the son of your former pastor, Jim Williams. And I got to be honest, I'm not 100% comfortable being up here talking. Yes, I've been a teacher for 20 years. I've been a coach, head boys and the head boys coach at Bethany for 20 years, and doing both the boys and the girls for 7 years now. Have coached high school football for 17 years, being a defensive coordinator, and so have been in front of people. Usually it's a little bit younger than what I'm looking at right now, but when Jim asked me to speak, part of my experience this summer, and which you'll hear about, the fact that I get a second chance at life. I can't, say no to an opportunity, so I, again, completely uncomfortable this morning, and we'll see how this goes. But I wanted to be obedient to what the Lord has in store for me and also for you this morning. So let me pray real quick. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for today and for your love. Thank you for this group of men here who want to come together to fellowship, but also to have a relationship with you. As somebody who I think very highly of once said, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. So, I have been all over the map on kind of how to start, what's the starting point, or where to go to, or what to even say. So, have really been putting it off for weeks. I think this is I've known about this for several weeks now, and just have been nervous about it. But really, this whole week I've really tried to lock in and maybe have a word that I want you to walk out with today. And for me, it's gratefulness. It's being thankful. And so whenever I was kind of looking at, some scripture or what the message might be this morning, a verse popped up that's very familiar to me because it was something that my dad shared with me almost on a daily basis. I have it tattooed on my body. Right now I've got long sleeves on, but the last time that I was a member of this congregation, I probably didn't have any tattoos. But if I take this hoodie off, I've got a sleeve, and they all have stories, those tattoos. But it's James 1:17. I have that verse tattooed on me, which is every good and perfect gift comes from above. And so that verse popped up, and I was like, well, this is the way that I need to go, because it's again a verse that's near and dear to me. It's something that my dad told me every day. I'm a good and perfect gift to him, and so it's something that I've told my kids and emphasized. Gratefulness, being thankful. But if I can go back to get my notes out. I've got a little skeleton here of what I need to talk about. Okay, at 16, I went to NYC in Toronto. I think that was 1999, so I was 16, 17 years old. And it was a fantastic event, but while I was there during one of the nights, almost, a lot of church camp experiences, you can feel the Holy Spirit in that place, but I felt called to the ministry in some sort. I've grown up in the church. My dad was a youth pastor at OKC First for 14 years, senior pastor in Midland, Texas, and a senior pastor here for 18 years. And so like I've always had a blueprint or a plan on, you know, what I need to do to go to heaven, what life I need to live, what things I need to be doing to be a Christian. And you know, I felt like I tried to do those things, and at 16 I felt called to the ministry, and so, you know, when it came time to go to college and pick a major, I did not choose religion. So, like, you know, my identity should be in Christ, but my identity was an athlete. That was my identity. That's what I wanted people to know the most about me, rather than that I'm a Christian. And when it came to picking a major or college, I chose education, because education gave me the platform to be a coach, to continue to be an athlete, to continue to play sports. And it really wasn't, you know, something that because my identity was athlete, I didn't, my grades weren't great. You can talk to my dad over here. What was I good at? I was good at sports. I early on, I kind of wanted to be an FBI agent. At points in my life, I wanted to be a rock star. All things that, you know, for me were not really attainable for the study habits that I had, or the gifts that were given me. I'm tone deaf, can't sing, so.
Most of them can't either.
The only thing I thought personally the only thing I thought I was good at was sports, and so education was the only way to continue to be in that world, and so luckily I feel like you know, I struggled with that. In college, I struggled with that going into my first year of teaching, and then my dad took me to lunch one day, and I kind of expressed my, you know, fear, because Dan Bohai came and spoke at a revival here at this church, and in that revival he spoke about, you know, his calling, and that he didn't do what the Lord wanted him to do, and ended up being in a hospital bed, and he decided that I will be obedient. I will follow what you want me to do. And I sat there in that church service and was scared to death that if I choose a path that's not the Lord's path, that He will, like, I'll die. Like, if you're not going down the path that He wants, that He's called me personally for. You know, I've always been afraid of you know, living. Are going down a path that's not meant for me directly by the Lord. So, and I went to dinner with or lunch with my dad, and he said, you don't have to be in front of a pulpit to be a minister. You don't have to preach to be a minister. And I felt a huge weight lifted, because at that point, 4 to 6 years or so, I was, you know, playing collegiate soccer and, you know, getting my degree in education to become a teacher. But I felt like my dad's a pastor, that's what a minister is. And I was going the other direction. And, you know, whenever I looked at it through his eyes, I accepted and kind of moved forward full steam ahead, that this is my calling, to be in front of youth and kids, and do things a certain way to set myself apart from. I think I was talking to Jim this morning about Notre Dame's coach, and we were talking about my son's recruiting and the coaches that are out there. I mean, there's great coaches out there, but there's also bad coaches out there, and the way that they behave, the way that they talk, and those types of things. So I've always tried to, you know, show my athletes and my kids a certain culture that is set apart from, you know, the standard in society. You don't have to cuss and yell. You can love and encourage and still get results. So for the last 20 years, I've been full steam ahead on my path and what I was called to do, and I had an opportunity to leave coaching, or to leave teaching in 2016 and coach collegiately, and that opportunity didn't present itself. But I've always questioned why that he put me through those interviews and put me through that process, because I was obedient in taking those things. And I don't know. I told the Lord, if I don't get this job, then I'm where I need to be, and your will is better than mine. And I didn't get it, and the guy that did get it it ended up being the best person for that college program, and he's fantastic. But I truly feel like I'm where I need to be and what I need to be doing. But through coaching and through teaching, especially in the day and age that we live in with NIL and recruiting and parents. It's, if you go to a high school game on a Friday night and you just sit in the stands, you can listen to parents complaining about the coaches, that their kid's not playing, or like. The good thing about where I'm at and the coaches that I coach with is we truly, yes, we want to win, and winning is important for the job that we do, but winning is not the most important thing. And what we're trying to teach kids, I think, is more important than wins and losses. And you just go sit in the stands and listen to the complaining. And we've got good, not just at Bethany, but there's good people out there trying to do good things, but it's just extremely hard to teach and coach in the world that we live in these days. And that stress over the last 20 years, I've got to say that probably I try to put on a persona, or I want to be seen a certain way, a large part because of who my dad is, and but like after college, socially began to drink alcohol, not going to bars and just getting hammered every single night, but it was a part of our household. It was in the refrigerator. It was present, and as the years went on, it's something that the stress of coaching. Instead of only on the weekends when you're out with your friends, it was a hard day today. I'm gonna pour a drink, and so it was something that began to be a problem, because in 2011 I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So when you start to drink, you start to make poor decisions, and when eating right and what you put in your body is important. When you drink, you tend to eat whatever you want and do some of those things. So, the stress of wanting to be the best coach, the stress of wanting to win games, and the stress of trying to watch my kids play, I started to dip and chew tobacco. My grandpa had a bad habit of doing that, my mom's dad. And so I know, it grossed me out, but it was something that if I was doing it, I was calm. It took the edge off. It took some of the stress away. So it was something that became, to June 30th, the only time I didn't have nicotine in my mouth was when I was sleeping, and there's times I fell asleep with a pouch in my lip. Again, I know what to do. I grew up in the church. I know the path that I need to live. I know the things that I need to do. But in the 2023, my son was evaluated, or a talent scout from St. Louis City's MLS Academy came to an event. What he did is he said he could not find the level of player in Missouri, so he pulled up a ECNL, which is the league that my son was playing in at the time, and pulled up a regional map and just looked in the surrounding areas of Missouri, what ECNL teams were good, so he could come and evaluate. And the Energy, where he played, was the #1 team in Oklahoma at that time. So he came and watched them play. And then he came to another event, and then he came to another event, and started following him on film and having the coaches send him anything. And this is unbeknownst to us or him, but after I got to coach him for 1 year, and we lost in the semifinals, but he was invited to St. Louis to trial and ended up making it, and they ended up paying for him to live with a family. So in 2023, he's a 15-year-old in which I've been at every single one of his games. I've been pretty invested, or I've always been present. And in 2023, we took our 15-year-old and moved him to St. Louis to live on his own, and let him pursue his dream of becoming a professional athlete. And that year we lost in the semifinals, and he was a freshman. And he told me that he really wanted to chase his dream. He said, "But your dream is to win a state championship, and I feel like you need me. Like if I leave, that's gonna really, you're not gonna be able to. It's gonna be really tough for you to do that." And taking your 15-year-old and moving him to St. Louis was one of the hardest things that I think I've ever had to do. But trying to be a dad from 7 hours away is almost impossible, and that just created stress. So really, from 2023 to this summer was some of the worst times for me, because he's extremely important to me. So the stress of being a diabetic, and then when you're coaching and only being able to eat in certain time windows and frames, the drinking had increased so much that it was becoming a problem. The constant use of narcotics to calm down, and the constant worry of, where's my son? What's he doing? Is he okay? I can't watch him play this weekend because they don't live stream their games. I have to wait and wait for a phone call. That was extremely difficult for me, and created kind of the situation that put me into what happened on June 30th, which was I died. And St. Louis City had cut him this past year because he had a ton of injuries, and he decided that he was going to go play collegiately at Xavier, and they wanted him to come in January. So when he told St. Louis that he was going to leave early, they cut him. So he came back and had the opportunity to play with his former team at Nationals in Seattle. Fortunately, trying to get to the point here, but I did win a state championship with my girls this season, and I think in large part I told God that he could have my son, and he could go to St. Louis, and I could forfeit my dream of winning a state championship. And he gave me the opportunity, one, to win one, but one, to have my dad on the sidelines to experience that with me was, a blessing that is unbelievable. It's a perfect gift that he gave me. But coming off the stress of that and going to St. Louis, I was exhausted. I was exhausted because of football. I was exhausted because of soccer. I was exhausted because of not being able to be the dad that I wanted to be, that I thought was an effective dad, and the drinking, the eating, the diet. I was almost 200 pounds at Christmas, and had lost a little bit of weight because of the stress of the soccer season. And so we go to Seattle for ECNL Nationals to watch my son play. And we're there for 9 days for this tournament. And he does great. Xavier comes and watches him play. He performs great. He came out of his injury and is playing well. And he gave his team an opportunity to go to the national finals in Virginia. But on that Sunday night, June 30th or June 29th, we go to dinner, and he's supposed to play at 8 a.m. in Seattle, and on Monday morning. And we're 45 minutes from the field. So we go eat with a large group. And again, as a diabetic, a crab cake burger and fries and a pint of beer is probably not the best thing to have for dinner. And I finished eating around 7 p.m. and everybody's laughing, everybody's having a good time, and I'm sitting at the end of the table, and I just don't feel right. I don't feel good. You watch a movie and you see people having heart attacks, and I think the actors are terrible, because it's not what I was feeling. It wasn't painful. It wasn't, it was something that's still to this day is hard to articulate what I was feeling. Best thing I can say is my stomach, you have a stomach bug, and it knots up and cramps, and you kind of want to just lay in the fetal position. Like, I felt that was happening in my chest, and it wasn't painful, and it wasn't like an elephant was sitting on my chest. I was always coached, you're either hurt or you're injured, and I could handle whatever I was feeling. Started about 7 p.m. Sunday night, and so we leave the restaurant. We go back to a friend's VRBO. We're staying in a hotel, but if you have kids that go on trips, they want to be with their friends. So we go back to the house because that's where a lot of the players were staying, and my son wanted to be, hang out with them. So they all go out on the back patio to continue having a good time, and I kind of go isolate myself in the living room with the lights out. And one of the moms came in and was like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "I just, I need a minute to, I'm just not feeling good." So, we had to get home because it was an early game and get packed up and loaded up because we were going to meet my dad in Florida that night. We were going to fly from Seattle to Florida at 10:40 p.m. was the flight. And so we got back to the hotel around 10, and in my mind, I just wanted to get in bed, and I just wanted to sleep. I just wanted this feeling to go away. So I tried to, and it persisted, and it was just a wave, in and out, in and out. And I told myself that I was going to tell Amy, my wife, that something is wrong if this persists for another. I kept on putting, if it does another 20 minutes, if it does another 20 minutes, if it does another 20 minutes. And during that process, I fell asleep. So miracle number one is I woke up Monday morning. And so I woke up at 5 a.m. I packed everything up. I took all of our bags. I loaded them up in the car, drove to the field because if you know my son, he likes to get there early. But he was having he had to see a trainer to get his ankle taped and needed to be there a little bit early. So we got to the field around 6:50 for an 8 o'clock kickoff. And so I took my chair, went and sat it on the sideline where I always do. As dads were rolling up, they're high-fiving, chest bumping. The energy is high because if they win, they're in the top 8 and they go to Virginia. And for them, they haven't done that in the club, or for his team has never done that. And so it's a big game, high stakes, a lot of nerves, a lot of pressure, and you know, the dads are ton of energy and I've got zero energy. And so, you know, several of them are like, hey, you okay? And I'm like, I'm just, you know, I'm ready for this game to get on, like, you know. And so I sat there, and, you know, the game starts. And I don't know if you've been to Seattle in June, but like I had to wear a jacket the entire time I was there. And on this day, you know, the wind had kind of died down and it was a little bit warmer than it had been. I had these jeans on, and I had a golf polo on. And so by halftime, it's probably 65, 70 degrees. It's perfect weather. But at halftime, you know, I'm just sweating. And instead of the waves in and out, it was constant in my chest. And I'm still feeling like I was the night before. I know something is wrong, but, you know, we're in the middle of a game. And I keep my mouth shut. And halftime, I go change into some shorts because I'm wet. I'm soaking wet. And my wife, you know, she had to stop at the porta potty because she needed to change as well. And I needed to sit down. So I left her at the porta potty and went to the field that we were on. And she came out of there, you know, chirping at me saying like, well, that's rude for you to just leave me here. And I'm just like, I need to sit down. Like, I need to sit down. And so we get there, I sit down, and, Beckham, you know, they were down 1-0. He scores 2 goals. They're up 2-1, and they concede with about 10 minutes left. So it's 2-2. But he has both the goals playing, again, out of his mind, and it's good to see, and it's fun to watch, but I feel terrible. And it stays tied 2-2. And so the next is they go to a penalty shootout. And in that penalty shootout, each team has 5 shooters. They alternate, and the best of 5, that team goes through and the other team loses. And so, you know, he's the 3rd shooter. So we make, we made it, they made it. So as it stands, it's 2-2 in the shootout. And my son's the 3rd shooter. And before he takes a PK, he always stands behind the ball with his legs like this, and he relaxes his body, and then he moves to his left foot. That's his dominant foot. And so I see him standing over the ball. This is what I remember. And he's standing over the ball, getting ready, and then he shuffles to his left. And that's the last thing that I remember. I grabbed my wife's arm, and I just said, I'm not all right. And that was the last word she heard me say. And he ends up making his shot. I didn't see that. I didn't know that happened. But whenever I grabbed her arm, my whole body went back into the chair and went limp. And so when my wife's eyes are on the game and she sees our son make the shot and turns around and sees me, you know, slump back, she thinks I'm relieved that he made the shot. And then she saw the white in my eyes roll back, and then I fell out of the chair. So she starts screaming, and this is her account, she starts screaming for help. Miracle number 2 is the complex that we were at there's 16, 24 fields. It's a big complex. And where our field was at, there's a field 5 yards, 10 yards behind us. With a game that's going on as well, or it just ended because we're in penalty kicks. And an ER doctor was watching his kid play right behind us. And an off-duty firefighter was watching his kid play right behind us. And every site in these events have to have a defibrillator on site. And my wife is saying he's diabetic, and thinking that I was having a seizure. And the ER doctor recognized that this was not a diabetic event, that this was a heart attack, and starts, yelling for a defibrillator. My son had made his shot and had jogged back to the half line or he had congratulated or told our keeper, hey, you got the next one, and was jogging back to the half line and looked over and saw me on the ground in a commotion. So he ran over, and then our coach grabbed him and bear hugged him and separated and took him away so that he didn't see the firefighter and the ER doctor start doing chest compressions as well as they took Amy away as well. And so for 5 or so minutes, they alternated, both the firefighter and the ER doctor, 30 chest compressions each. And the defibrillator got there and it got hooked up, and they cut my shirt off. I don't remember that. I don't remember any of what I'm telling you right now. And the notes that, so when you go to the hospital and you have these events, like the doctors keep a log of everything. So reading back what had happened, they hooked the defibrillator up, which is, it takes a little bit of time, but then they shocked me. And so I came back with adrenaline, and I came to where I do remember this account. And so, do you know where you're at? Yes, I know exactly where I'm at. It's the quarterfinal game to go to nationals. My son was taking a PK. Did he make it? And they said, yes, he made it. But do you know, you're having a heart attack. And, that doesn't, I'm confused on what exactly is going on. I know, that something was wrong, but a heart attack. And I get nauseous and I roll over, and they roll me over and I throw up. And when they roll me back over, I went out again. And I liken it to, your alarm goes off in the morning, may have gone off this morning, and you hit the snooze button. And you can go right back to that dream that you were having. And so I remember seeing my dad about 15 yards from me, and I took off in a sprint because I needed to tell him something. And I don't know what I needed to tell him, but I know I needed to tell him something. And I felt this electric shock again. I felt it this time. I didn't feel it the first time. I felt it this time. And, I came off the ground. I screamed as loud as I could. But I was alert again, and I remember that dream. I remember feeling the shock. I remember coming out of it. And then, I see my son's face, and I see my wife's face, and, they are, the doctors are in a frantic frenzy to get me onto a gurney and into the back of the ambulance. And I know that, something is, I know that I could die on the way to the hospital. And, I'm exhausted. I can barely talk. I barely had the energy to say anything. But the miracle number 3, the hospital's 5 minutes from the field. And I was in the ER from the defibrillator to the catheterization was, probably 20 minutes from them cutting my wrist open, putting a stent in. I could see it on the screen go up my arm over to my chest. They hit the whatever that does that inflates it, and then I was in a hospital bed. That was Monday morning. I was in a hospital room and in a bed by 11 a.m. And it took about 17 hours to get my heart back into the rhythm that they wanted. And then I was out of the intensive care unit Tuesday at lunch, got my own room, and was released Wednesday morning from the hospital. And the word gratefulness, I talked to Monday night. Amy took my phone, so I couldn't respond to all the texts and calls. I talked to my parents Monday night. Was about the only people that heard my voice on Monday. And then Tuesday, she gave me the phone back so I could start responding and taking calls. And now when you greet me or now when you talk to me, it's, hey, it's good to see you. It's great to see me. I'm waking up each day is a privilege. And, I am beyond thankful to be alive. The surgeon that did the surgery, did the stent when I was in, kind of gave me a hard time about my blood sugar, but Amy, somebody had honey on the sideline and put a bunch of honey in my mouth, and they some glucose tabs, which spikes my blood sugar. So when they took my blood sugar, it was 400 and something. And
Oh my goodness.
The doctor was like, "You're diabetic, you should know better." And I just I didn't argue with him, and I should have known better. And but he said, you shouldn't be here. You effectively died, and like you shouldn't be alive. Most people would have died on that field. And I joked around with Amy, saying like I died and came back to life, and she is furious whenever somebody says that or I say that. But in reality, that's what happened. My heart stopped, and it took being shocked for it to come back into rhythm. But there's 4 things. When you are grateful, well, let me say this. My priorities were all out of whack. The things that were important to me shouldn't have been the things that were important to me. Chasing trophies, chasing awards, sacrificing practices and game planning film, and missing your kids' events. Not just like my son, I didn't have a choice there for a while, but missing my daughter's soccer game to be in a game planning meeting is something I never want to do again. But the things that were important to me before the heart attack are not important to me today. The things that matter to me, I told my son I will do everything that I can to be around as long as I can. And that's, honestly, the only thing that matters to me is my faith and my relationship with God, my family, and after that, I could care less. If I get fired tomorrow from, my job, then I'm okay with it, because, my identity was, a coach. My identity was an athlete, but that's not my identity today. And I'm, had that not happened, I'm probably still going down and choosing things that are important that shouldn't be important, and doing things. But I wrote on the napkin, I counted up the days. June 29th was my last drink of alcohol. That's 124 days ago. And June 30th was my last Zin that I had of nicotine. I haven't taken a drink of alcohol or tobacco or nicotine for 124 days, and
Praise the Lord.
it's an easy way to live life now. That when you simplify the things that are important to you, it makes things much easier. The stress level that I have is low, because winning games aren't important. I'm fortunate that God gave me the opportunity to win a state championship, which has always been my dream. But again, it's not important. We have a good chance to do it again, but it's not important. I was the NFHS, or the United Soccer Coaches, which is our national federation. I was the state coach of the year. I just found out last week that I'm the OSSAA coach of the year, and it's weird when you stop caring about some of those things that God finds a way to bless your life and give you those gifts. So I just wanted to I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to be here this morning. I'm grateful that I get to be here. I am grateful. When you're grateful, it reminds us that God is the giver of all good gifts, which James 1:17, you know, every good and perfect gift comes from above. So that's all I have. I don't know how, you know, the roller coaster that I said to get to this point, but hopefully you heard something or I said something, or I don't know. That's my story, and I appreciate you.
Praise the Lord.